There's a rumor that OTF Vonnie is cooperating.
Yep.
The situation for Lil Durk could not be more serious right now. And to make it worse, one of his most trusted friends has reportedly taken a 25-year plea deal to testify against him. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the channel. In this video, we're unpacking one of the most stunning acts of disloyalty the hip-hop world has ever seen. The focus is on Lil Durk's longtime brother Vonnie, who has supposedly turned his back on the very person responsible for his status. This goes beyond typical street drama. It's a foundational story of trust, deception, and the legal system's strategy of turning a rapper's inner circle against him. Don't forget to like and subscribe, because the details of this story are truly unbelievable. The situation takes a wild turn right here. As reported by several sources, like Chicago's Trenches News, when Lil Durk and his co-defendants recently appeared in court, someone was missing Vonnie. This wasn't due to illness or a simple scheduling conflict. The truth is far more alarming. The rumor is that Vonnie has been transferred to another location, potentially even entering witness protection, because he's working with the feds. Just consider that. While Durk and his team are in that courtroom battling for their freedom, the person said to be central to the entire murder-for-hire plot is mysteriously absent. That's not an accident. That's the government shielding its most important informant. Trenches News explained it clearly. Vonnie wasn't just missing, he's been moved. He was reportedly relocated all the way to Rhode Island, isolating him from any possible interference. When the authorities move you like that, the message is clear. You're cooperating, and you're giving them everything.
This situation's gotten, well, I don't know. You would say it got more dicey, but you don't really know what's happening right now because you're just hearing a bunch of stuff, but it hasn't been confirmed. So there's the rumor that OTF Vonnie is cooperating.
Yep.
Hearing tells you all you need to know about the backroom dealings. Prosecutors don't just move defendants on a whim, they do it when that person has become essential to their case, someone who needs safeguarding because the information they possess can lead to life sentences. For those unfamiliar, Vonnie, whose real name is Kayvon London Grant, is far from a random hanger-on. He is King Von's biological cousin and was a core member of Lil Durk's circle for a long time. We're discussing a person who is trusted with financial cards, who traveled on private jets, and who was privy to OTF's most confidential dealings. But there's a crucial aspect to Vonnie that many overlook. He was never truly cut out for the streets. As multiple sources, including explosive reports from Trenches News, have indicated, Vonnie was more of a schemer than an enforcer. He was characterized as someone who would con people out of their cash, and who might flip your money and only return it if he could. He didn't build his reputation through violence or steadfast loyalty. He was a shrewd operator who excelled at manipulating finances and circumstances for his own benefit, and that's precisely the kind of person who cracks under real pressure. Vonnie's history is key to seeing why he's an ideal witness for the prosecution. Unlike the others on trial, who have long criminal records and a reputation to uphold, Vonnie was always more of a financier than a gangster. He knew more about balance sheets than street rules. When you're staring down a life sentence and you lack that ingrained street ethos, cutting a deal becomes a very logical choice. The government prefers witnesses like Vonnie because they are coherent. They can comprehend intricate financial records and describe elaborate criminal operations to a jury in a clear, understandable way. A hardened street individual might be uncooperative or vague on the stand, but someone like Vonnie will lay out every single detail if it means a shorter sentence. But the story gets even more grim. New information has come out alleging that Vonnie took more than $300,000 from King Von, and this was after Von had already passed away. Let that truly sink in. He allegedly stole from his own late cousin, the same person he now claims to want justice for. Reports indicate that Vonnie moved $200,000 from Von's account to an unknown one in August, and then brazenly took another $150,000 in October. We're talking about a man who robbed his own family while they were mourning.
Vonnie's dad is saying that Vonnie never got his money.
The dad is saying that Lil Durk and Vonnie crossed him for some money. It's either three things that he's saying, and he's saying that his son them crossed him out of the money. Like the money he stole from Von, he didn't give him no money, that he stole all Von money out of his account when he died. So he said that he wasn't to testify, and he going all the way with it.
King Von's child's mother and other relatives have supposedly verified this, with some claiming to have evidence of the transfers. The family allegedly tried to alert Lil Durk about Vonnie's actions, but Durk didn't listen. They told him there was camera footage of Vonnie leaving the bank with Von's money. Yet Durk continued to keep this person in his circle. This theft exposes Vonnie's true nature. This wasn't a crime of desperation by someone with no options. It was a premeditated act by someone with the access and the coldness to see a grieving period as a financial opportunity. Doing this while Von's family was arranging his funeral demonstrates a level of detachment that is deeply disturbing. The timeline makes it even more shocking. Von passed away in November 2020, and Vonnie was allegedly stealing from him just a few months later, while Durk was grieving his closest friend, and Von's family was dealing with their tragedy. Vonnie was silently transferring funds and profiting from a deceased man's accounts. The supposed security video of Vonnie at the banquet. Von's money should have been the final straw for his place in OTF. Any reasonable person would have immediately ended a relationship with someone who stole from their dead best friend, but Durk's sense of loyalty, which is usually a virtue, in this case became a flaw that Vonnie used to his advantage. The most painful part of this entire saga is realizing how much Lil Durk actually did for Vonnie. This wasn't a simple professional arrangement. Durk considered him family. We've all seen the videos of Vonnie at the renowned Icebox jewelry store with both Durk and Von, making deals and managing huge sums of money. In one specific clip from September 2021, we watch Vonnie acting as Durk's representative in a major jewelry transaction, holding bundles of cash and bargaining on Durk's behalf.
7,000-8,000.
When you're making millions, you got millions, you gotta write
Y'all
out.
don't start with that today. YouTube.
This was a man entrusted with vast amounts of money, allowed to use OTF credit cards, and treated as a brother. Durk included Vonnie on private flights, gave him a leadership role in OTF, and effectively made him wealthy by association. Vonnie's life transformed from an ordinary Chicago guy to someone traveling the country on private jets, staying in 5-star hotels, and living a life of luxury. The depth of Durk's trust is visible in every recorded moment between them. In the Icebox video, Vonnie isn't just a spectator. He's actively involved in price negotiations, handling the money, and making calls for Durk. You don't grant that level of responsibility to just anyone. That's reserved for family. Durk also gave Vonnie access to OTF's entire financial system, credit cards, bank accounts, and key business choices. Vonnie was involved in all of it. He wasn't merely an employee. He was effectively Durk's right-hand man for both business and finances. But the hard truth is that Durk should have heeded the warnings. When Von's family came to him with proof of the theft, when they showed him the evidence, when they pleaded with him to distance himself from Vonnie, Durk chose faith over reason, and now that misjudged loyalty could cost him everything.
Yeah, look, it's one thing to say that you're gonna do 30 years, and it's another thing to actually do 30 years.
But I feel like Durk actually, he had a damn good chance to get.
This is a classic case of how a virtue like loyalty can become a fatal flaw. Durk's desire to stand by the people who were with him from the start is commendable, but it also opened him up to being used by individuals like Vonnie who knew how to take advantage of that devotion. As outlined in federal documents, Vonnie was a key player in the alleged murder-for-hire plot aimed at Quando Rondo, which tragically led to Lil Pab's death. The prosecution describes Vonnie as the operational brain who made the entire scheme feasible. His involvement was extensive. He supposedly flew with Durk on a private jet from Miami to Los Angeles to help plan the murder. Once in LA, he bought 4 black ski masks with cash and used an OTF card to get a hotel room for the shooters. He provided the crew with guns, including automatic weapons, and secured 2 vehicles for their use. This wasn't minor assistance. Vonnie is accused of being the ground commander. He was the one ensuring the shooters had all the necessary tools to execute the plan. The authorities have evidence like credit card statements, hotel receipts, and records of weapon purchases. He created a digital trail that points back to OTF. The federal indictment details the murder-for-hire plot like a guidebook, and Vonnie is connected to every single part of it. From the airport arrival to the shooter's escape, Vonnie was allegedly managing the logistics and making sure everything went according to plan. What makes this so incriminating is that Vonnie wasn't just a foot soldier. He was making key decisions. He picked the hotel, he chose the cars, he bought the guns. This degree of involvement makes him a principal conspirator, not just a helper. But it also makes him the perfect witness because he knows the entire playbook. The fact that he used credit cards for these purchases shows either a stunning lack of foresight or sheer arrogance. Perhaps he thought they would never get caught. Or maybe he was already planning his cooperation and wanted a clear record that implicated others while giving him leverage to negotiate. But here's what makes this even more devastating for the defense. Vonnie wasn't just involved, he was a direct observer of everything. He was on that private jet with Durk. He heard the discussions. He saw the strategy unfold. He knows the exact extent of Durk's role. And now, it seems he's prepared to tell the prosecutors every detail. The government has constructed their case on the foundation that this was a multi-state criminal conspiracy. Vonnie's testimony can link all the evidence together in a way that physical proof alone cannot. He can explain to the jury not only the events, but the motives and the chain of command. According to Trench's News, which has led the coverage on this story, Vonnie is apparently angling for a 25-year plea deal in return for testifying against Lil Durk. 25 years may seem like a long time, but when the alternative is life imprisonment for a murder-for-hire conviction, it's a lifeline from the prosecution. Trench's News did the math on this deal. With a 25-year sentence, Vonnie would be roughly 55 when released, or maybe even younger with standard time served reductions. For someone facing death in prison, that's an offer you accept immediately. But what's truly chilling about this is that Vonnie seemingly had this planned from the start. Insiders suggest he was already analyzing his potential prison time and seeking an exit before he was even arrested. This wasn't a spontaneous decision after being caught. This was a person who always had a backup plan. The fact that he meticulously analyzed every charge and its possible sentence in text messages shows this was a cold, premeditated choice. He knew the risks and had already calculated how to reduce his own penalty. That's not the action of a loyal friend. That's the action of a person who only looks out for himself. Trench's news uncovered that Vonnie had sent texts breaking down his potential sentences as if it were a business transaction. He went charge by charge, figuring out the possible time and how he could lessen it. This analytical approach proves that Vanya was never emotionally bound by street codes or loyalty to his associates. The 25-year deal also shows how highly the federal government values Vonnie's testimony. They don't offer agreements like that unless they are confident the witness can secure a conviction against a primary target. In this situation, that target is unmistakably Lil Durk. What's especially cold about this deal is that Vonnie is essentially exchanging Durk's freedom for his own, while Durk is looking at life behind bars. Vonnie is negotiating a sentence that would see him released in his 50s, with many years of life potentially left. That isn't just cooperation. It's the ultimate betrayal of someone who considered you family. What makes this so perilous for Lil Durk is that the prosecution might not need any other witnesses. Vonnie alone likely has enough knowledge to send Durk away for life. He was on the flight. He managed the arrangements. He witnessed the planning, and he can attest to Durk's direct participation in every stage of this alleged conspiracy. Federal prosecutors favor cases like this because they don't need a chorus of cooperating witnesses whose stories might not align. They have one central witness, who is part of the conspiracy from beginning to end. Vonnie can guide the jury through the entire sequence, from the first conversation to the final act. And here's what makes it even more damaging for Durk. Vonnie doesn't carry the same baggage as other potential witnesses. He's not a random criminal with a lengthy rap sheet. He's Von's cousin, Durk's confidant, someone who is welcomed into the most sensitive OTF activities. When Vonnie sits in that witness box and states that Durk personally told him to organize this murder, the jury will listen. The defense might try to challenge his credibility by mentioning the theft from Von, but that could backfire by demonstrating he has no reason left to protect Durk. The federal approach is clever in its directness. They don't need to prove Durk was the trigger man, or even in Los Angeles during the shooting. They only need to prove he was part of the conspiracy, and Vonnie can provide that testimony with brutal specificity. Federal conspiracy laws are specifically designed to prosecute people like Durk, the architects who plan crimes but don't physically carry them out. The prosecution doesn't have to prove Durk knew every single detail, only that he was part of the overarching plan and that a death resulted from it. Vonnie's testimony will likely center on his direct conversations with Durk, the orders he received, and the means that were supplied to execute the plot. Even if Durk never uttered the exact words "go kill Kwandu Hondu," Vonnie can describe the context, the preparations, and the undeniable intention behind their actions. In hindsight, the warning signs were everywhere, and Durk's team should have seen them. The theft from Von's account should have immediately ended Vonnie's involvement in any future operations. The fact that Von's own family was cautioning Durk about Vonnie should have been sufficient to sever all ties. But this is the danger of street loyalty. Sometimes it prevents you from recognizing clear dangers. Durk was so committed to preserving his circle and honoring his connection to Von's family that he disregarded clear proof that Vonnie was untrustworthy. Trench's News has reported for months that Vonnie was the vulnerability in this case. While other defendants might have street honor and a code to live by, Vonnie was always the most probable to cooperate because he had the most to lose and the least street credibility to protect. The red flags were obvious. Von's family didn't just have suspicions about the theft. They had proof. They had surveillance footage, financial documents, and transfer records that clearly showed Vonnie taking money from Von's accounts. This wasn't a mysterious disappearance of funds that could be justified. This was recorded theft. When family members show you evidence that someone stole from your deceased best friend, that should be the end of the discussion. No history or past loyalty can excuse that kind of betrayal. But Durk's choice to ignore these warnings shows how his loyalty became a vulnerability that Vonnie exploited. The fact that Vonnie remained involved in OTF's activities after the theft accusations shows either extreme arrogance on his part or extreme gullibility on Durk's part. Maybe Vonnie believed he was protected because of his relation to Von, or maybe Durk believed that blood ties were more important than anything else. This betrayal transcends the legal consequences. It's dismantling Lil Durk's legacy as it happens. Here is an artist who constructed his entire image on loyalty, on being real, on never turning on your own. Tracks like Loyal Brothers and countless others about staying true are now being weaponized against him by someone from his innermost circle. The irony is crushing. Durk spent years writing lyrics about fake friends and treachery, but he failed to see the most dangerous one was standing right beside him. All those lines about loyalty and authenticity are now being revealed as empty, as his own day one is prepared to testify to put him in prison for life. This is more than a criminal trial. It's the collapse of everything Durk said he stood for. How do you recover from having your own cousin-in-law, someone you treated as family, take the stand as a witness against you in a federal case?
I had a bad background, just growing up as a child, about father being incarcerated for 25 years, 26 years. So I had a rough past, but like me moving to Atlanta, I just thought that just changed my whole identity of thinking.
The music world is monitoring this case intently because it highlights a recurring issue in modern hip-hop. Artists reach incredible heights of success but remain trapped in a street mindset. They earn fortunes but still resort to violence to resolve conflicts. Durk's journey from a local rapper to a global star was meant to be a blueprint for success. He was the voice for his community, someone who escaped the chaos and achieved real, legitimate success. But now that story is falling apart as the very streets he came from pull him back under. The effect on Chicago's drill scene is immense. Durk was among a small group who successfully crossed over from drill to the mainstream without losing their authentic connection. His potential downfall sends a warning to other artists that no matter how far you go, your history can always find you. What's especially revealing is how the other defendants are reacting. Reports suggest that DD Boogie and the rest were actually in positive spirits during their court appearance, even sharing laughs. That might seem odd for people fighting for their lives, but it could mean they have insider knowledge. Perhaps they're sure of their defense. Or perhaps they believe Vanny's testimony isn't as solid as it seems. More likely, they're just putting on a brave face in a hopeless scenario. Vanny's absence, however, is deafening. When the feds relocate a cooperating witness, it's because they are safeguarding their key asset. They need Vanny secure and ready to testify when the trial begins. The anonymous jury selected for this case is another negative indicator for the defense. When judges mandate anonymous juries, it's because they deem there is a legitimate risk to the jurors' safety. This immediately prejudices the jury, suggesting the defendants are dangerous individuals who might intimidate them. Trench's News noted that an anonymous jury essentially informs the jurors that their lives could be at risk simply for doing their civic duty. This creates an underlying assumption of guilt that is incredibly difficult to reverse. Before a single piece of evidence is shown, the jury knows they are dealing with people considered so threatening that the court must hide their identities. The broader context is that this case exemplifies the deep-seated problems in contemporary street culture and hip-hop. You have artists with millions of dollars who can't abandon street mentalities. You have people who achieve everything but still feel compelled to seek revenge through violence. Lil Durk had it all: Grammy nominations, mainstream acclaim, wealth, and a platform to make a real difference. But apparently, none of that was enough to resist the call of street justice and the desire to avenge Van. And now, the same individual who allegedly helped him plan that revenge is the one who will testify against him. The streets offer no loyalty in return, and this case is the ultimate proof of that brutal truth. The real disaster here is that all of this could have been avoided. Durk had reached a level of success that should have lifted him above street politics. He had the money to manage disputes legally, the influence to promote positive change, and the stature to be an example for the next generation. But the forces of loyalty and the thirst for revenge overpowered common sense and self. The very loyalty that helped Durk build his name and maintain his image ultimately became the trap that his adversaries used to ensnare him. As we conclude this detailed look at one of hip-hop's most profound betrayals, keep in mind that this is an ongoing story. Vanny hasn't officially testified yet, and Durk's lawyers will have their opportunity to present their case. But the situation looks dire. When your own day one, a person you treated as family, a person you made wealthy and powerful, is willing to be a witness against you for a lesser sentence. That reveals the true state of loyalty in the modern world. This isn't just about Lil Durk and Vanny. This is a warning about trust, allegiance, and the price of ignoring obvious dangers. Sometimes the individuals you keep closest are the ones with the greatest power to ruin you. The federal government has a powerful case, and with Vanny's cooperation, they have an insider who can describe the entire alleged conspiracy. Unless Durk's legal team can somehow undermine Vanny's credibility or demonstrate he is lying to protect himself, winning this case appears to be a monumental challenge. Make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications, because we'll be covering every update in this case as it unfolds. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe Vanny's testimony will be enough to convict Durk? And what does this entire situation say about the concept of loyalty in hip-hop now? Thanks for watching, and always remember, not everyone who smiles at you is really on your side.